everyone, and welcome to another session from Pivot. So, we are here with two really fantastic speakers who will discuss how they have transitioned in their career recently. And if I'm sure many of you are thinking about changing your role, your domain, your industry, or some other parameter within your career, I'm sure this session will be very insightful and hopefully helpful as well to you. Um, there are a lot of different types of transitions that happen, and at Pivot we work with people for making those different types of transitions to fruition. So we'll discuss them throughout the course of this particular session, and without further ado, I will be bringing our two speakers for today onto the stage. So just give me 1 second. Okay. All right, perfect. Hi, Rafeeq. Good evening, Vardha. Good to have you both.
Yeah,
Thank
hi.
you for joining me
Hi,
today.
Arjun. Hi, Arjun.
Great.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And, we have been trying to do this for some time. So good to finally get you both. And really, really thankful that you were able to make time for this. So, we were just talking about the fact that career transitions are becoming more and more common in the sense, there are people who are looking out for new roles more frequently than they used to before. And simultaneously there's been a lot of layoffs as well in the job market, as I'm sure both of you are aware. So we want to focus on this topic in this particular session because it's a pretty wide ranging and also deep problem that people are starting to develop about
Yeah,
not knowing how to navigate a challenging job market, right? So where we can start is maybe just a quick round of intros. I can go ahead first, and for people who don't know me, I'm the founder of Pivot. We help people make smooth and successful career transitions. So whether you're just changing your job, or let's say your domain or industry, level in the organization, or some other core profile element, that's where we come in. And our goal is to help you land your target role in each case, right? So there are a lot of other things we'll talk about what Pivot does and how we help. But that's it for now, and I'll turn it over to Rafeeq first. So Rafeeq, welcome again to the session. If you can just maybe share a little bit about your career journey, your background, that would be helpful, and then we'll turn it over to Vardha.
Hey, thanks, Arjun. Hello, everyone. My name is Rafiq Alam. I'm
Rafeeq,
based
can
out
you
of.
speak up just a little bit? Your volume is a little lower.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yes, much
Okay.
better.
My name is Rafiq Alam. I'm based out of Bangalore. I have around 15 years of experience in the supply chain and analytics industry. I started my career with Bharat Electronics Limited, which was a government sector. I transitioned into an analytical role uh, 15 years, 13 years back. Then moved out to an ERP implementation, Oracle, and then moved on to a GCC setup kind of stuff with Koch Global Services. And very recently, Pivot helped me with a very difficult transition that I had to make, a mid-career transition from a company called Watts Water Technologies into more recently into a delivery manager role with O9 Solutions, which is a supply chain software company.
Okay, great.
Glad to be here and share my thoughts.
Thanks, Rafiq. Thank you for sharing that. Vardha, if you could share your background as well.
yeah, sure. Thanks, Arjun. Thanks for the opportunity to speak a little bit of my heart out. I'm Bharata. I have 22 years of experience in making mistakes, recovering from them, and being fluid. I would have said supply chain, but the number of transitions I've made over the years from retail banking to investment banking to private equity to finally now I'd say tech. I don't even want to bracket myself saying I have this experience. I think what I've learned over the years is to stay fluid, stay nimble, and I don't know if it makes sense to some of you making watching this. For a long time I used to hold myself back while asking others, and I used to hold myself back helping others. I think I've just expanded that overturn window a lot more over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think it's starting to help both ways better. Meaning, I'm getting better at helping other people, and hopefully, other people are getting better at helping me. Right. And that's the only thing that I wanted to sort of start up with. I have precious little in terms of, experience or expertise. I'd like to imagine that I'm learning and hopefully getting better at not repeating mistakes.
Perfect. Great. Thanks so much, Vardha. And I really like, how you talked about like that you have, focused on two things: how to help others better, and how to have others help you better. I think the second part is very uniquely interesting because a lot of times, there are people who want to go out and help others, but they forget that they can seek help too. And that's one of the major themes that I wanted to start off with, right? People at your level, both of your levels, I think you both have, let's say, 15 plus or even maybe about 2 decades of experience in your career. A lot of times at that level, people find it challenging to seek help, to ask for support, because it's expected that the more senior you are, more experienced you are, the more you would be able to do things on your own, and rather you will just be helping others, right? So we have seen this stigma around asking for help because perhaps it makes you look weak, or it makes you look, other negative connotations which people might have developed in their mind. So right, what made you firstly think about at this stage in your career, find a new role, find a new career path, and simultaneously what made you really think about, reaching out for support, right, to pivot or to any other person you might have even in your network? How did you kind of get over any hesitation you might have had, in terms of asking for help? And then what was the, how did you decide the way forward? Like that, this is how I'm going to reach out to an organization or to an individual to help me with my next steps in the career.
Mine was a not so typical situation, right? I mean, I made a what we call it as a bad decision of I was having a very kind of stable role with core business solutions, right? Then I thought I should move on and take something bigger, right? I made a bad decision of getting into some kind of a bigger role that I could not fulfill, and I was almost on the verge of getting laid off, right? So I had to think of all the avenues that could be available for me, or that are possibly are available in the ecosystem to help me get an opportunity, right? I mean, the way I was thinking it was it is an event, right? I mean, I was very recently thinking like career transition is an event. I'm just waiting for that somebody to look at my resume, call me for an interview. Then it's just another sequential next two events that I crack those two interviews and I land up at a job, right? So when I realized that this is not going to be an event, because I looked for an opportunity for around 3 to 4 months, and in many cases I realized that I was not even getting a job in white. I mean, all the social networking avenues that are existing are quite exhaustive, but was not giving me an opportunity. So then I was looking up what parallel avenues are available, right? I mean, what other things are available. Then I kind of stumble around pivot, and there were other 2 3 things that I kind of parallelly ventured into, right? And that's how accidentally I met pivot. And then uh, once I think my first conversation with you was, and I did some research around between these 2 3 things that are available. Given that I don't have enough time in hand, the time was slowly ticking away. I wanted to join something that could kind of rapidly give me the results and output. Right? And when I had the first conversation with you around that, how these things are going to work out, that really shaped my life. And then the structure that we would had, we don't really talk to each other.
Rafiq, sorry, your voice is drowning out again, so maybe you could just,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean the structure that Pivot had was really something that was helpful in my journey, and what helped me was in realizing that this is not an event. The transition is not an
Right, right.
event, but
Got it.
it's a journey by itself. And
Hmm.
how we approached it. Uh, that's the thing.
Got
That's
it.
the part
Got
that
it.
I
That's
found.
helpful. That's helpful. I think, yeah, that's one of the good insights, I mean, that you're sharing, that a lot of times people see job search or transition as kind of like a one-time event, but you're absolutely right. It's sort of a continuum. And I think Vardha referred to it in the initial intro as well, that it's a series of actions or a series of, impacts that happen within your career and your life, right? So it's not just about that particular one-time event, but how your professional life unfolds thereafter once you have made that decision to embark on something new. And so it's a pretty critical decision to make. Vardha, I would love to get your thoughts as well. It's a crazy job market for the last 2 3 years, right? Everybody is quite aware,
Yeah.
and especially people at the more senior level are facing, I would say, bigger backlash just because there are fewer roles at the top, right? And then you have, all these technologies that are advancing rapidly, putting some of the more experienced people slightly behind because they don't upskill as often as the younger folks. So what made
Yeah.
you think that, okay, I should be transitioning, I should be looking for a new role? And then what made you ask for support?
Sure. I always had a bunch of open items that I was trying to resolve for a long time. I was a supercomputer. Rather super commuter. I used to work in Bangalore and live in Chennai. So now, of course, I've done this for almost 8 9 years. So this was something that was a little sort of pending from my side to resolve as kids were growing up. While I think I still sort of thoroughly enjoy it. I think the time strain, I won't say the physical strain, of how do you manage a parent teachers meeting that's scheduled on February 23rd between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in Chennai, being in Bangalore, was just getting way too much. So
Hmm.
I think that was one of the things. The other thing, of course, is I think, given the way our own careers and lives are, I think anyone sort of north of 15 20 years has to be prepared for all things all time, right? So, and one of the things that I think the way I would sort of think about it is, we all, when we start our career, run with this notion that all of us will be cheetahs, we'll run at 100 kmph forever. It just ain't going to happen, right? I think you just have to be this cyclist in Olympic, slow down sometimes, trail someone sometimes, follow on sometimes. You are the lead and providing cover for somebody sometimes, and then you step up when you can, right? And because it's never going to stop. So you just have to figure out that right pace within your professional life, personal life, your own role as, let's say, a child to a parent who's probably in their 70s or 80s, and your own role as a parent to a child, with which is probably sub-teen, less than 10, etc., etc. Right? And it's a chess game. If you're thinking you're never going to lose a pawn, you aren't getting anywhere. But at the same time, you don't want to get your own queen exposed, right? And you want to sort of hedge it, if that is probably the right sort of way to say. So I think the one thing that is really really sort of stuck out with me is, no one's going to give you a job. I think people want to see if you can demonstrate initiative and intent to help you solve a problem that they have, right? I think even in brand management now, they use this framework called JTBD, right? Job to be done. Customer is
Right.
not looking for a auto. He wants to get from XXX place to YYY place in 20 minutes with a budget of less than 100, right? That's all he cares about, whether it's an auto, yellow auto, Uber, etc., etc. You go figure, right? And I think the one thing that has sort of stuck out for me is, now for a long time there was this belief that you express yourself on social media, it'll work. I think there's just way too much clutter. I think the only way it seems to work, at least the way I'm thinking about it, is you make sure the impact of who you are and what you can do is well felt amongst the 50 100 people who have either worked with you in the past, or have a connection with you, or can be potential beneficiaries of your work, right? So it's like a Venn diagram, right? And I think as long as you are like meaningfully staying in touch both ways, right? And which is where lots of people get it wrong, including me. When you're doing well, you just think, you just ghost somebody and say, okay, I don't have the time to do this.
Hmm.
uh, it could just be you, the other person who's just feeling disappointed, saying, this fellow's ghosting
Right.
me. So try and be reasonably helpful. No one's going to be able to devote more than 2-3 hours, maybe 10, 20 minutes. I think the one, because I tried to help somebody who was without a job and he had like a rough time, and uh, because he was a close friend, right? And it almost felt like that pain was my own. So I sort of followed up, did the best I can. I saw through this entire thing for 5-6 months. So that vicarious sort of experience stood out for me, saying these are the various touch points through which you could help, right? Like, for example, if someone sends you a resume, most people will just forward it and forget about it, right? Now I think hopefully I can do better. I tell them that this is the recruiting manager, this is the type of person he is, this is what he seems to like. Have you gone to LinkedIn and see what kind of posts he or she has liked, what kind of speeches or any such else he or she has done, and double click on a topic, dive deep, send me a write up with a cover letter that talks to them about this. If somebody is in ad tech, tell them, this is where I think I have a view or I can help you. At least provoke them into a conversation, right? I'm just saying, this wasn't probably wisdom I had 5 years back. So, or, you could say, look, can you just triangulate this through somebody else? Most people just throw a stone into an empty well and hope that water will rise up.
Got
Again,
it. So
seldom
you
happens.
had this experience with your. I just want to double tap on that experience you had with your friend, and you kind of had a vicarious experience of that journey, and that kind of made you feel like, okay, whenever I go through this on my own, like in the sense I'm trying for a new role, I should, let's say, go out and get some professional help, or like how did that exactly happen?
Yeah, I think I realized that you will have a lot of blind sides, irrespective of who you are, right? I think because what happens is, in some sense, when you're like, let's say, searching for a job, your mind isn't sort of having a panoramic view of what could happen. You're just so in your own smaller vision, uh, you
Yeah.
know, sort of looking through your own pinhole camera, that you can't understand that the person is getting, let's say, 200 such resumes, or
Yeah.
he or she is meeting 20 such people. What is it that makes you stand out, right?
Right.
So it's such a sort of very simple thing, but it's got profound implications, right? Can you
Got
be
it.
more persistent? Can you stand out? Can you be more creative? Can you be more differentiated? Can you show extra initiative? Can you be more avant-garde in your thinking? Lots of things, right? You just have to like peel it in some way that you think is fit, right? So I think the fact that I was trying to help him with this sort of outside in view when he was going through this, right, sort of also made me feel that maybe I am also doing a lot of these mistakes myself,
Got
and
it.
potentially somebody else could, right? So it's like, I think someone says this all the time in sports, right? I think the people who are very average sports players become the best coaches, simply because they got to some level, they also know not get to the next level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they
No,
have
good
this,
point.
they are in this Goldilocks zone, right? Like, which is why I think now Andy Murray, for example, is coaching Djokovic.
Yeah.
So they were both rivals. Andy Murray got somewhere and get right, and so he probably now knows Djokovic to stretch on by another. So I think
Yeah.
that's what I at least thought about, and I think just to be aware and hungry and
Yeah,
persistent
I
all
think
the time.
the point that you're, I think, making, which is very interesting. There are so many people who, in your close knit circle, like even I know a lot of people, even if I wasn't at Pivot, let's say, helping others professionally in their transition, I would still know many people who would have gone through difficult job search periods just because that's how the market is operating today. Yeah, almost everybody knows somebody in their circle who has been laid off, or who has been a great performer, but suddenly they are experiencing work related challenges for various reasons, not being able to land a job because of the economy, because of job markets, etc. So I think everybody is quite aware, and I think you took that
Yeah,
experience a little, I would say, to the next level, where you firstly try to help another person within your network, and more than helping them, you had learnings along the way which made you realize that when I do this, I may want to do it differently so that I don't make the same exact mistakes. I think that makes a lot of sense, Vardha, and I think that's a unique journey that you have had. But I'm sure others should be able to, learn something from that insight. You don't always have to make mistakes yourself to learn from it. Sometimes you can learn from others' mistakes too. Rafiq, I want to, kind of talk a little bit more about the specific action items that you took during this journey, with us as you were working with us, or perhaps even, outside of that program, you might have done things on your own. So, if you could just broadly talk about maybe the two or three most impactful things which you believe led to the success of your journey, right? Like in terms of actually making a successful transition within a relatively short period. Because to be very honest, the average job search today, especially for people in senior levels, it used to be somewhere around 4 to 6 months on average, like 5 years ago. Now it is closer to, I would say, about 9 to 12 months, honestly speaking, right? For most of the people.
Yeah.
And that's just because, again, how the markets have evolved over the last couple of years, and many other factors. So your journey, Rafiq, has been, at least since we started working together, was much shorter, right? There were certain things that you must have done which helped you achieve those results faster. What do you think some of those things were for you?
Yeah, three things, right? I mean, that really struck me. The first and the most important one is just what you mentioned, right? I mean, I wasn't aware that the average time is, with the evolving time, has gone up to 9 months. I was kind of rushing, getting impatient, and other stuff. So I kind of laid back and I bought some patience for myself and said that, okay, this is going to take time. The second one is the structure and the discipline one that is needed. But like I was kind of randomly trying to apply everywhere, anywhere, and for all the opportunities. On an average, before engaging with Pivot, I was kind of spending close to 15 hours a day applying. I mean, looking at least 100 job openings, right? Reading through all of them, and almost applying for everything, right? I mean, one session with a mentor and then drawing that up with you as well helped really well. Was that you need to have a structure and a discipline. You can't do anything and everything. First, you have to realize what your strengths are, what the industry is, and what is your smaller circle of focus that you have to kind of focused approach that you should have, right? I mean, and that session with the mentors, I mean, some of the mentors were really a genius in their own existing fields, and they had done this multiple times, right? I mean, and they were kind of truly professionals. And just to kind of take 30 seconds out, right? Before this, I was thinking that, okay, I myself could mentor others. Why do I need a mentor, or how is this going to help, right? But once I spoke to multiple sessions, right? And I just want to debrief what how I. One of the mentors took at least 3 hours to understand the journey that I have got so far, right? Just understanding my strengths and so on. I mean, that was kind of uh, defining time for me in terms of laying out what should be my strategy. And that sessions specifically helped in kind of for me to zeroing out what should be my focus areas, focus companies, and focus roles should be, right? I mean, and then onwards, the third and not the least important point, having the discipline in terms of spending, if you are spending 2 hours a day, having faith and belief in the strategy that you have put together, and kind of religiously following up in a disciplined way every day, executing it, looking at it, reviving it, and not looking this as an event but as a journey. Right? One of the snippets what one of the mentors shared was that we're not looking for just one job change. It might take several years to reach where you want to reach, right? I mean, this is not just about one job change, right? And these three things are the most important one that I
Hmm.
could recall. Of course, there were many other points that Pivot had taken me through. So,
Sure, sure, sure. Um, yeah, I think the structure that you talk about, and the guidance and objective feedback that people get, I think those two things I completely agree. For most people are quite beneficial. And the other thing you were talking about, the part where you got focused, right? So initially, you said you were applying to anything and everything, and it was a bit of a hodgepodge strategy. But you got this kind of focus and discipline to say that okay, there are many things which might look, like they might be shining and they might be attractive opportunities, but they are not worth my time. Can you talk about that part, Rafiq? If you could just double click on how did you actually go from saying that, okay, I'm going to just not apply to every single thing that I see like I was doing earlier. So,
Yeah.
what gave you that focus or clarity specifically?
So, in one of the mentor sessions, the mentor took me through the journey of kind of allowed me to list out all the interests that I have got and what my strengths were, right? My strengths, my interests, and if I have to kind of triple click onto this one, right? Take few examples. My my area of focus has been to I have spent time to supply chain, but I have done some sort of project management, delivery management, and those kind of senior roles as well. However, I was applying for all kind of roles in the project management in the IT sector, right? I was just getting attracted by the fancy company names and the offers that they had got. The mentor helped me in kind of zeroing out that there are two areas that I have to focus on, right? One is my basic strength where I've spent my 15 years is supply chain, and my interest is on companies which have got supply chain plus technology onto them. Then this gave me a smaller list of companies that I have to target upon, right? Now I did not have the 300 or 500 companies. Instead, the list had just 30 companies, right? Then again, I did not, for the first instance, I did not had a faith saying that, okay, 30 companies, the chances reduced, right? And that's what I said the mentor that, okay, we are reducing the chances of me getting hired instead of, I thought, pivot is going to increase the chances, right? And then this opportunity that I recently landed up did not come to me. Instead, I approached some of these companies, but the way it was suggested on kind of
Right.
sending out LinkedIn invites and reaching out to them. And fortunately, one of the first five connections that I made helped in my favor, and then everything worked for me. Fortunately,
Got it. Okay. Vardha, if you could also maybe just talk about, I think you've already alluded to some of the things earlier with regard to, what you did in terms of networking, but maybe think back
Hmm.
about like if you have done job searches in the past or you were doing it before you started working with us, what did you do differently this time, right? Like how did your thinking, your strategy change to ultimately help you land your target role? Like what were the new things that you may not have done previously which you did this time that were effective?
Okay. Till maybe 3, 4, 5 years back, I would have just sent a resume, asked for a reference, sent it to somebody, and then followed up. Right now, I don't do that. I think I first say, who's recruiting for this role? What is the role? What's the context? How big is the business? What do they want to do? Do they want to grow? Do they want to cut costs? Do they want to become more productive? Then go to LinkedIn or Google, search for some broad brushes about what is happening in the industry, in the company, and maybe even with that person who's potentially a recruiter or looking to add to that team, right? So uh, then actually I maybe sort of you know a lot of people may not necessarily agree with me. Now I'm starting to believe that more than your resume, I think if you can send a thoughtful body of work that isn't available on Google, that people can't get, it's your own point of view and you can see through that, right? I think it's like a very nuanced perspective that you will have if you've put in the SARS and if you've researched a topic very well. I think then at least people are open to a conversation. I think the other mistake I probably used to do was not double down on a few things that are sprouting and just go around throwing seeds everywhere. I think we all make that mistake. I think you throw a bunch of seeds, some of them sprout, you keep wasting even more energy on throwing even more new seeds, right? What you should be doing is something is sprouted, go and fertilize it, manure it, right? Dig a little bit, make it sort of come up. I think, given the way our own sort of lives are, I don't think we'll be able to do this for more than 5, 6, 7 meaningful, thoughtful conversations that are potentially likely to have a 3-quarter, 4-quarter end. Beyond that, I think my humble sort of sense is you're just wasting your time. If you are applying to a nameless, faceless job where a potential acquaintance is referring you, very slim chance you'll get anywhere. So it's like a multiplicative probability. Either the acquaintance is so strong and has got influence that he can refer you even if you're not strong, or you are such a strong fit that you could get through irrespective of how weak that reference is, or you have a very relatable, very unique niche body of work that you can go and dock into straight, into the mothership, is the way I'm now thinking about it.
Got it. Got it. So I think,
So I think it just goes back to what, sorry, about Charles Darwin was saying, that being more adaptable.
please go ahead, Vardha. Please finish your thought. Please go ahead.
So that's all. No, I just said become more adaptable, become more fluid. I think somewhere during this last couple of years, I stuck out, a quote by Bruce Lee stuck out: "Be like water, take the shape of what is around you." Right? Uh, it somehow sort of stuck out with my mind. So I keep at least telling that to myself all the time.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I do think, there were a lot of good learnings. I especially agree with you that the traditional job search methods you said, like just applying to faceless, nameless jobs and hoping to hear back. I think that's working less and less. I won't say it's completely 0%, but earlier, let's say if it was working for 50, 60, 70% of people, today it's probably working for maybe 25, 30% of people, right? So it has definitely
Correct.
reduced significantly. And what that means is that majority of people will have to understand for themselves what works best, right? Or find the support if they can to get feedback as to what they should be doing. And in that regard, I think one of the biggest findings, even for us, after working with thousands of people, has been that while your resume is important, there are other bodies of documents or work that you need to showcase, whether it's your portfolio, whether it's a cover letter, whether it's your LinkedIn profile, whether it's take home assignment or a strategy deck. There's so many different points of references that you can look at, and it's not a one size fit all, to be honest. It may take a different shape, as you said. Shape of water is flexible. It can really tailor itself to
Yeah.
whatever it's aligning with. And so I think that is definitely one of the biggest learnings that has happened. But I just want to follow up on that one question. How do you decide what to create in your body of work? Like when you are thinking about, okay, I want to showcase my best work, either from my prior experience, or perhaps I do something new, even which I haven't done, but like let's say a small strategy deck for this company. Um, how do you decide that, and how do you make it effective, meaning they actually employers find it helpful to shortlist you?
Sure. I think, as far as the body of work goes, I think at least I haven't still discovered a new dimension. I think it should feel like play to you, but like work to somebody else, right? And this is what they also say in sports, that if you can practically see if a guy is like a budding spinner, because even in his dreams he's always rotating his wrists, right? So not that someone is paying for it, not that he or she is thinking they'll play cricket, or they'll even get better. It's just that subconscious thought that you thoroughly enjoy, that seems to consistently run in your mind, right? And I think everyone has that own uh, thread. See if you can amplify that to something that is meaningful and can fit in with the requirements of the job, which is why I said it'll only fit for 4, 5, 6 opportunities at any given point of time. The second thing is, in an increasingly attention scarce world, I think do what everybody else is not doing. which is, if everybody is posting on LinkedIn, don't post on LinkedIn. That's my view. I could be wrong, right? So, like for example, proof of concept in digital ads, where we made a digital ad that would waft aroma of coffee. Right. Everybody thinks of digital ads as like something that you see in a 2x2 screen with sights and sounds, much like what we are going through right now. No one thinks of aroma and touch, right? A touch was too difficult, but aroma was fairly easy. You just needed like a robotic arm to waft open the can and sprinkle some coffee, right? So it's not like it's a this doesn't need you to be an Elon Musk to do it, right? I mean, the point I'm saying is you can put in some effort and try and do something that stands out thoughtfully being the word, and even more brownie points if you can be persistent with it, right? How you want to define persistence, I leave that to you. Some people, for example, some people, even I'm both a recruiter. Now I also, I'm obviously, when today morning, rather, yesterday somebody sent me something right up saying this is why I think I'll be a fit. So I gave him this feedback saying this is why you're wrong. Today he said, I think some of your feedback is valid, some of it is not valid. He pushed back and gave me a new right.
Hmm.
What does this show to you? Grit, resilience, ability to take feedback, adapt yourself, but at the same time hold your ground.
Yeah.
That's all,
Got it.
right? So at least it's got into a stage where we think it's worthwhile spending a lot more time with this candidate, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and this is not like he pinged me on LinkedIn, then send it to me on WhatsApp. So it's not like it came through a reference or he had a superstar social presence. So I think
Right.
people figure out their own ways that fit in with their personality, right, and their interest is how I would sort of think about it.
Got it. Very helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Just, the last topic that I wanted to cover was more related to the final steps in a transition process, right? So I think a lot of what we have discussed today, is very helpful when you're starting out and you're framing your job search strategy and, kind of getting focused, getting disciplined, trying to land interviews, right? Now, you both must have landed, I'm guessing, at least one or more interviews, after which you want to convert them, right? So once you start having the conversation with the employer, how do you actually convert it into a good offer which is better than your current one, especially, and not just in terms of pay but in different parameters, right? Whether it's responsibilities, like further for you, I think you're also talking about location being an important parameter for you. I think, Rafiq, you obviously were trying to make sure you close the role as soon as possible because you had a time urgency at your end. So, if we can maybe talk about like what helped you convert the conversation that you were having, the interviews you were doing, or anything else, maybe some negotiation that you might have even had to do with the employer to firstly land the job offer, and secondly land an offer which is actually aligned with what you want. So, Rafiq, we'll start with you if you can maybe share any thoughts on that front.
Yeah, but again, 2 point on two contexts, right? I mean, the first one was preparation for the interview. I had by this time I had realized that the entire job search and hunting a job landscape has evolved for what I had been used to, right? So this is not going to be, I'm going to use some jargons, they're going to get impressed out of it and they're going to hire me. Those days are gone, right? I mean, AI can generate much better than me, and they're used to it, right? So every industry has got a different aspect to it. And again, I reached out to the industry experts that were available in Pivot. I did not, since I had time urgency, I just did not go with one regular mentor, but I did multiple sessions with multiple folks to get varied amount of perspective so that I have the better preparation. And I did get a chance to do a mock-up interviews as well. Again, multiple mock-up interviews. This prepared me really well. I mean, the context that these people were regular interview takers and the feedback that they had shared of how I am doing in the interview and how I should be doing about things, right? I mean, how I should be approaching this interview helped really well in terms of securing or building confidence in myself and kind of playing to what the interviewer is looking in me rather than trying to sell my resume or show my desperation in front of them. The second question was, once I was selected, right? I mean, how do we negotiate with the constraints in the position that I was in? I think the sessions that I had with you and few other folks as well helped really well in terms of I mean, kind of handling those negotiations in a way that is win-win situation and mutually beneficial for both myself and for organization, and doing it in a professional way was a really game changer and something which was very satisfactory to me.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Very helpful. And Vardha, if you could maybe talk about the same aspects, like what helped you convert the opportunities.
Yeah, I had like sorry, okay, I had a couple of offers. I think one obviously fructified, the other one was almost in the pipeline. I think on the first one that fructified, I pretty much think the thing that, again, I just goes back to what I was saying. I had no shame in following up, saying, "Look, I think I want to move back to Chennai. This seems to fit my bill, and I think we will work well together. And here is why. See this body of work." So I think it went on and on for like 3, 4, 5 months, like what you're saying, right? I mean, because no one's in a hurry these days to close something. So you got to sort of impose yourself a little bit. It's not going to be just a linear sort of. If you're waiting for a helicopter to come and pick you up and take you up higher, uh, probability of that happening is much lower. But the second thing, I think, at least working with you, that helped me open up my mind was, see, is pivot yourself from the expertise and the experience to what is it that you can help somebody get done, right? And I'll give you an example. If you're, let's say, a product manager with 15 years experience and you have 6 product managers reporting into you and you're like considered a product director, right? You'd say, look, I am looking for product management, right? uh, you know I think that's too sort of typecasting and narrowcasting yourself. I think the right way to say this is, I have now the ability to distill multiple things into a scalable product, right? An assembly line equivalent in the information technology industry. Where can I make this fairly useful, right? I'm actually flipping and inverting the argument, saying if you are a great product manager, the place where you can add the maximum value is in, because they have never been used to product management, right? So you could actually be a pretty smart person contributing meaningfully. They'll value you, you will feel valued, that they actually respect your viewpoint, and hopefully you can work together, right? So uh, I think that's how I sort of think about it, that uh, what are things, I think if you're reasonably self-aware, I think you will know some of the softer things that you're pretty good at, whether it is communication, grit, resilience, good temperament, to have lots of stamina, ability to travel. These things do matter, right? People just say, I have done 15 years of insurance sales, right? And insurance sales is probably the toughest, right? The distilled version of that is, because I've done 15 years of insurance sales, I have tremendous patience. I have a consultative approach. I can be patient without waiting for the outcome. And when I sell something, it stays put for a long time, right? Is there more portable skill set, if I might say so, right? So if you have done insurance sales, I could actually say you could do IT sales, you could do SaaS sales, because the fundamental levers are the same. It's just that you are sort of seeing it at a much lower level of granularity, is how I would sort of think about it. Again, I think, like I said, there was this wonderful video of Rahul Dravid, talking about some of these things that people never pay attention to. People talk about how sweet the shot was or whatever. He said things like grit, resilience, how quickly you got back after you fell down, whether you cried on the field but you recovered thereafter. These things are never sort of captured on TV, and these are the things that actually matter, right? And coming from him, I would imagine it should be a weighty observation. So that's the other thing. I think all of us have a lot of reasonably useful soft skill sets, we tend to undervalue them. And I can tell you in, you know, even when I recruit, no one's like getting fired or not doing the job because they don't know the business. They most people are reasonably smart. They're functionally they're pretty good. I think it's just the small things that make the difference, that eventually elevate you. Today, for example, just another. I mean, just before this call, I was on a, you know, on a call. Somebody had some client had asked, let's say, three specific questions, right?
Yeah.
Somebody not in my team but close to me or whatever, right? So he had just sent a PDF saying, please find attached, right?
Hmm.
That's like saying, this is what I have, take it or leave it,
Right.
right? A smarter person would have said, these are the three things that, those are the answers to this. By the way, this is one thing that you missed out on. And I'm happy to get on a call to discuss this, because I genuinely think I you could benefit from this, or I could be adding value here. Someone's
Right.
given you a rope, it's up to you to climb it, right? And how much
Very
you
well.
can sort of get out of it is completely up to you. And when you start thinking of this every day across a lot of these things start to matter quite a lot. And that's how compounding sort of builds up. Is, at least it's a late realization for me, but at least better than never.
No, I think very valid point there. I think a lot of times people actually, like you said, undervalue certain aspects of their profile, which they should actually highlight much more. And to be very honest, Vardha, I don't know if you found this out on your own, or there was kind of I mean, whether it was self reflection or somebody kind of helped you figure it out. I think most people are not able to see that because you are so deep within your own experience, your own skill set, and your own life. You actually forget to have a very like third party objective take on yourself, right? And I think one of the main things that we have found beneficial, and I think Rafiq, you mentioned it a few times, is when you work with another person who understands your space at a high level, that person understands firstly the field that you are in, so they know what kind of things are important from a employer perspective. But more than that, I think where they add value is putting a mirror in front of you, right? Which really kind of separates the good from the bad and helps you figure out how to position the good more strongly and kind of address the things that might be bad or sort of the gaps in your profile, right? That part we have seen time and again people have tried to do on their own, but because they are so kind of within their own heads, it's not very easy to take a very objective approach to that. So I think I commend on Vardha, you highlighting that. I think Rafiq, you as well, multiple times, that you want to make sure that you understand yourself, you are self-aware about your own pluses and minuses, and address them as strongly as possible. um, that is something I think you both have done through your journeys with us and on your own as well. So thank you for sharing that. Um, I think with that, we are probably coming to close of our session today. I did want to ask one final question, right? Which is, if you were to do this again, and I hope you're not planning to do this anytime soon, probably you're going to stay put in your next role for years and years, decades to come, and make a great impact. But let's say if you had to do it all over again, right? Um, what is the one thing that you would do differently, and what is the one thing that you would make sure you do and do more of this time? Rafiq, we'll start with you. You can take a second to think about it, but two things, right? One is, what would you do differently next time in your transition process? And what is the one thing that you found so helpful this time that you would do more of and do it pretty much right away?
Again, in my case, there is, I mean, both the answers are same, right? For me, right? I mean, this time I spent a lot of time thinking that I will figure it out on my own, right? So that I need an external support or external help. I am in a drowning situation. realizing, addressing that I'm in drowning situation. I on my own strength cannot excel out to these one, and kind of reaching out to external help and support is the one thing, right? I mean, just another thing is that I would do what I have started doing, right? I mean, building this network, not just sending out LinkedIn connection for a job search or those things, right? Building active networks and actively helping, not helping, but supporting and collaborating with people and helping them transition into in their own journeys is something that I feel I will take from I will take back home from as a learning, or as an underlined learning from these engagement with pivot, and from one of these transition is that from now onwards I will also assist people or associate myself in terms of speeding up their transition journey, or kind of
Like
associating
giving
myself
back to the
towards
community
giving
and
back to the
kind of, yeah.
communities.
That's brilliant, Rafiq. I think that's one of the most important things that you have highlighted so far today, because a lot of people, when they think of community, they think of, okay, what can I get out of this? That's just the natural way of thinking, right? For most human beings, there's, I would say, nobody who starts by just thinking of giving but never getting anything. But I think if you have had this learning along the way that community is not just about taking, it's about giving, and I need to make out time for that, right? So that it works well both ways, right? Not just one directional kind of give and get. I think that makes a lot of sense. We have seen time and again the tangible benefits of that, not just to get something for yourself, but the sort of fulfillment that you get out of it, the learnings you will have along the way by coming across new types of challenges and people. So thanks for sharing that. What same question for you. What's the one thing that you might do differently next time, and think that you would do more of and maybe start doing even earlier next time?
And I ask people, rather, give people a wider variety of options. This seems cliched, right? Because at senior levels, jobs or whatever roles are scarce. I think same thing, to make the sprout sort of blossom out, you don't have to again think the same way. You could even replant the sprout in another soil. You could bend the sprout, you could add more manure, you could retill it, pluck it out of the earth, replant it. You can do a bunch of things, right? We just sort of never think enough along new degrees of freedom that are always potentially available. Like, I will give you a real example. One of my friends, I just met him and said he's working for some Silicon Valley company, right? And he is in like Chennai. So I asked him how. He said, I applied for a job in California. I said, are you kidding me? He said, how? I said, I went through that process and I finally convinced them that I can be in whatever, Chennai or wherever, 2 months, a quarter. For 15 days, I'll fly in to California to make sure I don't miss out on face to face time. It works out cheaper for them. I am more productive. And I can also, as an add-in, right, cover zones that they can't potentially cover, the time zones that they can't potentially cover from the US, like APAC and whatever else, right? So he crafted something, right, from ostensibly a straight jacketed job with a description that you will probably find on a LinkedIn, thousand
Right.
kind, right? I was pretty impressed with this, enterprise on this, right? So, I mean, obviously, somebody might say this is very scarce and doesn't happen, but you won't know unless you give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, you have nothing to lose, and I would say you like creating a role for yourself can actually work out in a lot of cases, and perhaps even at least at a more success rate, at a higher success rate, compared to just blindly applying to hundreds of jobs on, like you said, those faceless portals, right? So I think there's not a very high success rate for that either, right? So if anything, if you do this kind of a customized tailored approach and you showcase your tailored skill set that applies directly to a company, I think that's definitely going to reap dividends. You will have to do it with a few companies. You can't just expect to do it with one or two and expect outcomes. But yes, I think one of the things, whether that has been a big takeaway, is similar to what you were saying, is a lot of people are good at talking about themselves in their job search and their transitions, right? They say that this is the skill that I have, these are the experiences, achievements, etc. What they fail to point out is how your profile, how your skills, experience, and achievements align with what the employers are specifically looking for, and
Yeah,
understand the pulse of their business and connecting that to what you bring on the table. I think that's where the good from the great get separated,
yeah,
right? And I think what your method or your friend's method that you outlined is, I'm sure he must have done a lot of in-depth research on that company to understand, what would really be beneficial to them at this stage, right?
yeah.
And curated his profile around that. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful insight. Thank you for sharing that. Um, all right, folks. I think that's pretty much it for today. We are coming up on the hour. Thank you again so much for joining me today, Rafiq and Varda. I really
Thank you.
appreciate all the insights and the experience that you brought here.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. We have a lot of different types of solutions and support systems in the form of industry mentors, recruiters, etc. on Pivot. So do feel free to check us out at mypivot.work. And in case you can seek any further insights or help from Rafiq or Varda, you can also feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn. We will be sharing their LinkedIn profiles later on to the folks who have attended this. All right. Thank you again. And I hope you have a rest of the evening.